Good morning, good morning. Hey, happy Thursday, everybody. It is your morning to listen up if you want to become a better negotiator. This is the video about you don't need to yell. I don't know what it was like growing up with you. I had people in my life who they always had their argument as, being able to conveyed by whoever had the loudest voice. And it really taught me early on that, that's how you win an argument. You just got to raise your voice. You got to kind of yell a little bit, kind of, assert yourself as a little bit bigger. And it's just absolutely the wrong way to do it. And for some of you, you might think of this as like completely normal and your family didn't, work like this, and that's totally fine. But I see it so often in the real estate game with people who try to assert themselves and make themselves seem super big or puff themselves up. They'll say things like, I've been in the business for 30 years and I've never seen this. Or they'll say things like, I do a certain amount of sales and do you know who I am? And here's all this stuff. And I'm listening on the other end thinking this is absolutely ridiculous. So I wanted to do a video today about this and just share with you a couple of tips about how negotiations are usually completely derailed by ego. And we see this often enough, even in the media and how things are portrayed, right? We feel like the loudest voice is the voice that always needs to get heard. And you see it with, either sides, right? The right and the left, and they're always just yelling at the other party as if, we can just make a loud voice and somehow we're gonna win. And I just wanna encourage you, if you're a negotiator, that you must be looking at this, and it sounds silly every single way. So I've been through so many classes for negotiations. I personally invest in negotiate. I just bought another course the other day on negotiations and sales tips. And I'm constantly looking at how do I find better ways for people to both get what they want and you can move the needle forward. I mean, isn't that what you would want in any sort of business deal, in any sort of relationship, in any sort of even political environment? People can have differing views other than the one that you have, and you don't need to brute force your way forward with this is the only way that it needs to be. So how do you get that way early on? Well, it really does take a lot of study, because most of the time we are wired in our brains to think of this is the only way that I can see it working, and I need to get this point across. And so our minds kind of put these blinders on ourselves, and we're always looking at how do I just get my point across? If the other person could just see it from the way that I see it, then they would believe. If they could just understand me, then they would understand why my position is what it is. And that's really just not like an educated view of negotiation. See, negotiation steps back and it almost looks at two parties as being like you're kind of looking down on yourself and you're looking down on the other, and you're trying to see what is the value that this person has and what is the value that the other person has. What are they trying to accomplish? And understanding that sometimes the initial try is gonna butt heads, and that's why you initially do this. So if one person tries to assert themselves and try to get bigger, then the other person does this, and it just goes nowhere, and then it's usually a walk away. And that's really not a good style of negotiation. And so, yep, thanks. Getting my breakfast sandwich here. But the better way to do it is I'm gonna give you 3 tips here. Thanks so much, man, appreciate it. 3 tips on how to improve your negotiation. Number 1, you gotta improve your argument. So think of any time that you have conflict in a scenario, there's an actual argument being made. Now that argument doesn't mean yelling, it just means I have a position and you have a position. So you need to improve your argument other than I think you should pay X amount for my property. Need to improve it. Here's why. Maybe give some reasoning to it. Maybe there needs to be a little bit more coaching around the value of something. So we need to improve our arguments. So I want you to think for yourself, if you look down and you saw these two parties kind of having this discussion, what would be the reasoning for it? Try to think of another way. And then here's a little tip that I have. Ask yourself, is that truth that you're making right now 100% of the truth, or is there other truth to be seen to it? So maybe that's only 90% of the reasoning. Maybe there's other things in there that we could bring to the table. So improve your argument. Number 2, consider what the other person values. Many times in real estate transactions, it is not just price. We think that price is the only thing, but that's not true. Some people want to say, I couldn't imagine renovating my property right now. I couldn't imagine moving out of my property within 30 or 60 days. I couldn't imagine any one of these things. And so there's other values that people have. And now that's just in real estate, never mind politics or relationships or anything else. People have values, and then it brings me to my third point. Find an alternate route, right? Find an alternate route. Sometimes it's like two cars coming at this one direction. There's a tunnel, and only one person can get through. And a negotiation feels like, well, who's going to go first? And who gets to really win here? Someone's going to win, and then the other person has to go. But sometimes there's actually alternate routes in there, like, oh, I didn't know. That's why all of these creative financing deals in real estate came about. It's like, well, I can't just buy your property because I have too many loans already. So what if you held the mortgage, and what if I paid you? Okay, well, that's a creative way of looking at it. Or like, what if you assigned the mortgage over to me? That would be interesting. Like, all of these different styles are what we call alternate routes, and it provides a massive amount of wealth to those who know how to navigate it. The same thing happens in negotiations of all kinds, whether it's politics or relationships or real estate or anything like that. Finding an alternate route is also an amazing way to be able to get what you want and have the other person get what they want. Great negotiators, watching what's happening in the political environment, watching what's happening in the real estate world, are just baffled, to be honest with you. If you've been through any sort of negotiation training, you're probably baffled as to what people are doing right now, because it's very little of it has to do with actually finding value in both sides. It has to do with this brute force sort of mentality that's always going on. So if you want to level up your game, don't raise your voice. Find a win-win and improve your argument. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys today. We'll see you tomorrow.